All right. I think all the audio problems have been addressed, and we're ready for week 3 of the preseason. Recap of week 2 episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, with my partner here, Mr. Sean Williams. How you doing tonight, Sean?
Doing good, man. Since for the first time since 2014. Oh, right. I gotta wear shades. But on the downside of that is that hopefully doesn't take a solar eclipse for the Saints defense to show up. So, there is that. We want to thank Fan Productions for sponsoring our show and invite you guys to join us on Facebook on the Underdome Podcast page, as well as on iTunes and on YouTube. And we thank everyone for their diehard support. You guys make us what we are, and we thank you for it. Getting back to Sunday, man, it's good enough for to an extent. It was good enough to get back to Saints football, but to get back to Saints football and see the display put on by the Saints in Los Angeles. Hey, I'm giving myself a check mark there because I did say Los Angeles, not San Diego, for the first time to address it. To see that kind of that sort of display out of defense, I think bodes well for the future. What do you think about it, Al?
Drew Brees didn't play. Phillip Rivers didn't play. Mark Ingram didn't play. Adrian Peterson didn't play. I think Michael Thomas made a cameo appearance. It's like I said a while back, quoting the late great Buddy D. Preseason is an illusion. Preseason is an illusion. You're never as good as you really appear in a preseason game, nor are you ever as bad as you appear in a preseason game. I saw a lot of positives about it. I thought Manti Te'o was on his Chargers revenge tour and was going to show them they made a mistake by releasing him. So I saw positives, but I also have to keep in mind that it was a preseason game. These teams that saw each other in practice 2 days before, the Thursday and the Friday. It was, I don't want to sound like I'm just raining on everyone's parade. There's a lot of things that I liked, but I have to keep in mind that it was a preseason game, a glorified practice, glorified scrimmage. So, it doesn't mean that this Saints defense is turning the corner and is going to generate 8 sacks, when they play a bad team. It doesn't mean that we're going to shut out 2 teams in a row, which basically we did. If you think about it, Cleveland Browns, we shut them down in the first half, and the San Diego Chargers, we shut them out all the way until Ryan Nassib throws the pick 6. But I mean, is that good to see though? Because in previous preseason games, what we saw was teams just marching through the Saints defense like they weren't even there. We saw body counts because every time you turned around, somebody else was hurt. You're not seeing those, so that's a good thing. But just it makes this week nice to read Saints-related stuff because I'm not seeing the normal, oh my God, doom and gloom. We have no cornerbacks. We have no pass rush. Our offensive line stinks. All those things that we've been accustomed to seeing for the past, 2.5 years. So,
yeah. Well, I think that it was great to get a win of any kind. It's good to see something positive come out of preseason to where we don't reach week 1 and we've got all our fingers and all our toes crossed and we're holding our breath. And as Purdy put on Facebook, making all these deals and doing all these things if the Saints just win. it's good to see something positive come out of it. Now, like you, I try to temper with the reality of the situation. Is we've played two teams, neither one of which we saw starting quarterback for. With San Diego, depending on who you trust and who you listen to, wasn't even their starting offensive line unit that was out there. But at the same time, I do like the fact that in two preseason games, there's been like 10 and a half sacks, I think. There's been turnovers created. The run defense has looked actually pretty solid. S defense has its moments, and I think that some of, and we'll get into this in a little while, I think that some of the weak links in that pass defense are being exposed. That as you alluded to, Drew Brees didn't play, Mark Ingram, Adrian Peterson didn't play, but on the other side of that coin, boy, did Alvin Kamara play.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara is showing in this preseason what we saw a lot of Michael Thomas last year. And I think we're going to have a similar type of production out of Alvin Kamara. I think he is going to show that he is a three-down back. Some people say he's the next Aaron Sproles. Some people say he's the next Pierre Thomas, kind of a faster Pierre Thomas. I went out even further. I said I think he reminds me a lot of Deuce McAllister when Deuce first came into the league, when he was backing up Ricky Williams and then became a starting back. Remember more of the power back that Deuce became in the last couple of years of his Saints career in 2006, 2008. He in those early years, especially if you look at 2002 and 2003, you saw a lot more speed, and it was a graceful kind of run. Like Hokie Gajan had said, it doesn't look like he's moving that fast, but you see him pulling away from people. And I see a lot of that in Alvin Kamara. And that's going to be interesting because a lot of people pretty much assumed that Adrian Peterson, especially the pro Adrian Peterson and the anti-Mark Ingram people, were kind of saying that Peterson was going to eventually supplant, Ingram as the starter and be more of that power runner and stuff like that. I think now you're going to have a good argument that Kamara is going to be out there a lot more. They're going to be able to do so many things with him that it's going to be hard for Sean to keep him on the sideline, that you're going to want to have him and Ingram in the background at the same time, backfield at the same time, and maybe have Kamara line up in the slot. You probably get more explosive screen plays, more explosive wheel routes, those underneath passes that we have Kamara matched up in a linebacker, I think is going to be a challenge now for defenses, whereas Ingram, and this isn't a knock on Ingram at all, but Ingram was more of a one-cut, try and run you over and run away from you kind of guy. Kamara's got a lot more juke to him and is going to try and make moves on people and has that quicker burst that we're looking for. He's not a power back. Don't get me wrong on that. I'm not trying to say he's a power back. What I'm saying, though, is he has the potential to really make the Saints not only more dynamic on offense, but really present a lot of challenges for defenses who try and figure out what the Saints are going to run from the same formations over and over and over again, because he offers you so many different things. And what we're seeing in the preseason, I think, is just the tip of the iceberg.
Me too. And I think that the analogy that you made was quite appropriate. I didn't think about it until I saw some of you guys talking about it the other day. he really is the same basic size, the same style as Deuce.
He's a little bit shorter. He's about 2 inches shorter. I think he's 5'11", and Deuce is 6'1", and I think he is like Deuce was 220, and I think Kamara is closer to 205. So there is a little bit of size difference, which is why I say he doesn't have the power of Deuce. But if he seems to have that burst and that glide to his run like Deuce McAllister had. He's not Deuce McAllister. Don't. I'm not saying he is Deuce McAllister. He just reminds me of how Deuce looked when Deuce first came to the Saints. That glide. That's the best way I can put it. It's a glide to his run.
The thing that impressed me the most is that the announcers on the actual Saints broadcast of the game the other night, which is what he did here, what they kept making reference to in that is how seasoned he looks already in only the second preseason game of his rookie year. How went there, and he saw what Ram did on that defensive end. I think it was Gordon. When he read that block Ram put on Gordon, he made that cut, and he was in the third level.
That was Ingram. It was Ingram. He did it.
Gordon's running. I apologize.
Gordon's a running back. Yeah, I don't. Melvin Ingram.
It's all confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was in the third level before he was even touched, which was just basically a brush on the leg. Kept his balance, and he hit that next gear, and the next thing that you know, he's turning around and handing the ball off to the referee.
Well, yeah, and that's what I mean. That was a great example of that was a Deuce McAllister kind of run where he just comes. First off, we have to give a lot of credit to Ramczyk for his blowing out right there. He cleared it wide open. Pete took the other guy, the defensive tackle, one way. Ramczyk was up in the second level already, and you had a clear hole that he hit that hard, and he was just going. And you could see the defensive backs trying to get – looks like they got the angle on him, and it just kind of fade away, and it was a touchdown. 50 yards, one play. So, yeah, that's what I mean. It's not the – when Sproles used to run, you could almost play the Pac-Man sound effect because it was like waka 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 waka. Those quick steps like that. It was. I used to call it. And this is going to show up on the comment, but I mean, it was like pitter patter of little feet. It was like you saw his little feet just go at hyper speed because he was taking these quick little steps. And Reggie Bush was much more of the darting kind of back. He goes this way, and he's cutting back the other way, and he's trying to get there as fast as he can. So you saw much more of a burst, whereas, Kamara looks just so smooth out there. When he runs, it looks effortless, and it looks like he's going in slow motion, but guys aren't catching him. And that's what I mean. It's it's a funny way of describing running styles, but really that's what you're seeing. It's just a glide, an easy run to it. And it's funny how you describe people's running styles like that.
Well, let me ask you this. There's been some concern voiced. Cleveland game, we saw quite a bit out of Garrett Grayson. Well, we saw quite a few snaps to Garrett Grayson. And then we saw at the tail end a glimmer of Nassib. Okay, going into this game, we got Chase Daniel to start it again. Largely ineffective. Just out of sync, basically, the entire time he was in. Nassib comes in relief of him and never, ever get any sort of rhythm going. And as you alluded to a little while ago, he accounted for the only touchdown that the Chargers scored with 99-yard pick six that never should have been thrown.
He tried to fit it into a window, and it was late.
He shouldn't have thrown that.
Well, if you look at it from behind, he's trying to fit it in a window, but A, was late delivering it, and B, he delivered it behind Tommy Lee Lewis.
Yeah, he threw it to the wrong side.
He should have released it about a second and a half earlier, because the window was there, but he still got the ball here, where the ball should be leaving his hand by that point. You know, when you see that window open up, because it's going to close fast, and that's exactly what happened. When he threw it behind, and that's why he threw it behind Tommy Lee Lewis, because Lewis had already started to move out of the spot.
Yeah.
And he was thrown to the spot where he was, and that's why the ball came behind him. So it was just a late throw. It's all on him. That was all on him. Now, I know where you're going with this question. Grayson will play Saturday night. You'll probably see Breeze. But, you know, because that's the game the starters should play the most. But this preseason has been unlike any other preseason as far as the way the Saints have been playing it. So he may only play a quarter or so, and Grayson may finish this game. I don't know, but this is going to be Grayson's long look, because Nassib got the long look last week. And I think you'll see, of course, in the fourth preseason game, you'll probably see Grayson and Nassib the whole time, the whole game. You won't see Chase Daniel at all. For my own sanity, I hope it's Breeze for, you know, the whole first half and the first series of the third quarter. Chase Daniel until the end of the third, and then, Garrett Grayson comes in for the fourth quarter, but I don't think it'll be that way. I really don't.
Are we beating a dead horse with Grayson Allen? I mean, someone asked me the other day, and the way that I put it to him is, in my opinion, Garrett Grayson is going into his third camp here, and he has shown absolutely no progression whatsoever, in my opinion, again.
Yeah, so much for learning behind Drew Brees. The idea of a quarterback coming in and learning behind Drew Brees, it just, like I always told people, that never happens. The fans always think bring in a guy and they'll learn behind a great quarterback, and it just doesn't work that way at all. But go ahead.
There's no way to gauge, and I say this all the time, especially around the draft. You can time somebody in a 40. You can see how many reps they do with how many pounds you got. You can see how they catch the ball. You can see how they block. You look at all of that. Maybe the most important thing that, in reference to, that you have actually no way whatsoever of being able to gauge in any way, is exactly how they're going to transition into the speed of the next level. The want to. Do you even really want this career, or is it just something that's been thrown on them? And in my, there again, I'm on the outside looking in. I can voice my opinion. No means am I trying to condemn this guy. I respect him for what he is, whatever that may be. But in my opinion, Garrett Grayson didn't step up to the plate and fully grasp the opportunity that presented him in this case.
Here's the thing. When it comes to football, especially the NFL level, everyone has talent. Everyone has the ability to play the position. Okay? At this level, it's the mental aspect of your game. There is physical skills too. You have to work on improving your physical skills. But it's the mental part of the game that it seems to be eluding Garrett Grayson. Like I told you earlier about Ryan Nassib. He was late delivering the football. He can throw a pass. Anybody can throw an NFL pass. It's the timing part of it. Understanding how much time you have. There's a great thing on NFL films on the West Coast offense, where they interviewed Bill Walsh about the West Coast offense. Well, they interviewed him. They used old clips because Walsh was dead, but when they made this clip, they made this program. But anyway, Walsh would talk about when he would script plays. He would script the game. It was all about timing. How many steps, a 3-step drop, 5-step drop, and how based on your footwork, based on your steps that you took, he knew how long a receiver would have to run a route and make a break before he would come open. So he would tell Joe Montana, for example, the reason why that play, you had to hold that ball an extra second or the reason why you were inaccurate on that throw is because you didn't take 3 steps. You took 2 steps and a hop. Or you took 5 steps and a hop. You didn't do it the right way, so you're waiting because the play wasn't ready yet. It has to come open, and it's all about timing. On that 5th step, you're already delivering the ball. And if you watch the footage of a game, you watch Drew Brees, when he throws a ball, the receiver hasn't made his break yet, and the ball's already left his hand and it's heading to a spot. And all of a sudden, it looks like the receiver just happens to get there just in time. Well, that's all timing. It's designed to be that way. So for Garrett Grayson, that's what's missing from his game. When we talk about the hitch in his throw, when we talk about his footwork, like we did against the Cleveland game, where he's not stepping into the throw, where he's letting the arm elbow kick out that extra step, where he's holding the ball too low. All that affects the timing of the play because it's an extra half second that it takes the ball to be delivered to a spot. So as a result, the ball's getting in the dirt, the ball's going way outside, the ball's going, to the other player, whatever the case may be. That's why the offense is out of sync. That's why it looks like things aren't working right. Okay? That's the mental part of the game. That's the part of the game you have to work at. So you have that clock in your head where you're going, okay, snap, I've got 3 seconds, 2, 1, I have to get rid of it now. Don't watch for the receiver to come open. I am throwing the ball to a spot. And Drew Brees is a master at this. He looks the safety off, makes the safety come over because he thinks the safety is trying to read Drew's eyes to think he's going this way. Drew looks at him that way and then turns back and throws this way, not because he saw a guy pop open, but he knows based on the coverage, based on the design of the offense, this guy will come open now, and the ball is delivered now. And you even hear, if you watch, I think it's the top 100 when Drew was in from 2011, where Rondé Barber says, how did he know that guy was there? I was just there, and I came up because I saw Drew looking the other way, and he threw right where I was. It's all based on the structure of the offense, the timing, and so forth. So unless Grayson spends that time working, understanding the timing, understanding the concepts, working on perfecting that so it's second nature, and work on his footwork and the way he holds the ball and his release point and all those things, he's not going to make it. So to make a long answer even longer, this is why he hasn't progressed. We haven't seen that. We have not seen anything from his rookie year till now where it looks like he has learned how to beat those kind of things.
Well, there's some people that say, well, he's always been the third string quarterback. He's never had that opportunity, and I disagree with that vehemently because he's been here 3 seasons. He's had 3 training camps. He's had 12 preseason games in which to showcase what he can do, and he has not. So, as far as I'm concerned, Garrett Grayson will not even survive to practice.
That's why I keep trying to tell people it's a mental part of the game. You need to be looking at the film. You need to be studying the offense. You need to develop that, and if necessary in the offseason, get with a position or quarterback kind of coach. Drew Brees still does this. Brees in the offseason works with a coach on his mechanics. Work on your mechanics. Develop that those skills that you need, so when you come out there, it's second nature. Because it's not just, okay, I need to work on my timing with these receivers. It's, I'm going to put the ball in a certain spot. I need to make sure I'm that accurate that I'm always putting the ball in that same spot over and over and over again. You've seen the quarterback challenges when Drew is throwing the balls in the barrel, right? You know, and it's like coming out of a jugs machine. It's boom every time, boom. The ball is dropping every time, right in the barrel. You know, most people, yeah, I'm going to get out of 10 balls, I'll probably get about 8 of them in. Drew's getting 10 out of 10 every time. And it's because it's the same footwork, same mechanics, same release point. He is going to release that ball identical every single time. If I throw a ball 10 times, the first 4 or 5, I'm probably going to hit it. After a while, I'm going to get lazy. I'm going to start sidearming the ball. I'm going to start dropping my elbow a little bit lower. You know, my footwork's not going to be as good because I'm not an NFL quarterback. I don't throw that way, you know. I don't work on my mechanics like that. But, yeah, I mean, that's what anybody. Not me. I mean, anybody out there throwing a ball, you know. That's how you get those wild balls.
We're going to go in reverse order this week.
Okay.
Give me 3 guys that were slipping and just about fell off the map.
Damian Swan.
That was
Stephon Anthony. Yeah, Stephon Anthony. And probably, let's just say Khalif Barnes and Bryce Harris. You know, those are 3 guys.
The Twin Towers of style.
Khalif Barnes and Bryce Harris. I mean, it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. You want to know why Ryan Nassib, looked harried so much? If you want to know why Chase Daniels started to look pretty wild, it's those guys. When those guys came in to play tackle, they were terrible. They really were. If they weren't acting like blocking sleds, they were doing the Olay Matador with, Olay, look out, that kind of thing. That's just how it was out there. I mean, guys running right by him. Bryce Harris has to hold because, he got beat so bad. Damian Swan, I pointed him out in that good, bad, and ugly. Here it is, 3rd and 23. What's the one thing you don't want to do? You don't want to commit a penalty. What's the first thing he does? He goes through a guy because he's late, breaking on the ball. Pass interference, they get a first down. The very next play, he gives up another big play. It's one after. And Sean Payton saw it. Payton's waiting for his ass when he comes to the sideline. He gave me that. I was looking at him and I was thinking about, if you watch the old NFL films of Peyton, whether he, in 2006, when he's jumping that guy for conceding routes, or the famous Mike Bell, what kind of shoes you got on, kind of chew out, that's exactly what he was doing. He was waiting for his ass.
Yep.
And then Stephon Anthony, in a game where the linebackers all came to play, he didn't even dress out. He hasn't been practicing. I know that. I suspect it was a healthy scratch. I don't know because, of course, you have an easier time getting information out of the Kremlin than you do out of Sean Payton about injuries. But it doesn't look good for Stephon Anthony. He struggled a little bit in Cleveland.
I have a hard time understanding it because initially in the Browns game, it looked like it made some progress, and then just kind of a slow and then a very steep drop off, and they pulled. And then this time he didn't even I've heard reports. Now I can't confirm this one way or the other, but I've heard reports that he didn't even make a flight.
Which could be because he's injured. That could be the case. If he's injured, then that would explain it. But for me, it seems like in the Cleveland game, he had a good sack, but then early in the game, he had a drop off in coverage, and he just totally blew it. And they caught the ball right in the zone. You even see him stumble over his own 2 feet. He was showing a lot of the same weaknesses we saw. It's like old habits die hard. He started progressing early in the game, and then as the game went on, he reverted back to old habits. And I think that's what the coaches were seeing, and the coaches were on him about that. So I don't know what it means. We'll see what happens next week. If he doesn't play Sunday or Saturday night, that's not a good sign for him. He needs to work. He needs to show he can play, and he needs to show he can drop off in coverage. And I don't know. That's my 3. And unfortunately, the people we've been talking about, Garrett Grayson, Damian Swan, and Stephon Anthony, all came from that 2015 draft class, which was Ryan Pace's last draft with his scouting department. It looks like Jeff Ireland. I wasn't happy about the hiring of Jeff Ireland, but I'm showing I'm wrong. That Jeff Ireland looks like he really knows what the hell he's doing as far as talent evaluation, because his last 2 drafts, the 2016 class and this class, look like 2 of the best draft classes the Saints organization has had since 2006.
I completely agree. Absolutely.
You've got first off, in the 2016 class, Rankins, Bell, and Thomas, all guys that are going to be starters for this team, with Onyemata, the 4th-round pick, coming in as the heavy rotation guy, if not a starter against some teams, depending on what kind of defensive alignment they come out with. The only bust appears to be Daniel Lasco, and he's not really a bust in so much as that there's just much better players ahead of him. Lasco, I feel like, doesn't seem to have any kind of wiggle to him when he runs. He's more or less just a bulldozer. Handing the ball, he runs straight at somebody, and that's all he's going to do. If the hole is let's go back to the old numbering system, but if the hole is a 4-hole, he's not going to look at the 2 or the 6. He's going through the 4-hole. Doesn't matter if someone's in it or not. He's running right through it. So still, that's not unusual that a 7th-round pick doesn't pan out for you. And then, of course, this year,
it's always been my opinion that anything on. Okay, you got 1. That's your first round.
Mm-hmm.
You have. That's your your second and third round. Anything beyond that is going to be, at best, a project player anyway.
Yeah, but
now, that being said, those guys that and obviously the higher their draft status is, the more likely that they're going to be able to make that transition and something useful for the team. But like Onyemata, for example, he has been playing lights out, in my opinion.
And what I was going to say was, between the 2016 class and the 2017 class, what we've seen so far, that looks like that's going to be the core of your team now. That looks like that's going to be the bulk of this team. And it looks like they're all good players, because we're seeing, obviously, Alvin Kamara, we talked about. We're seeing some stuff out of Marcus Williams. He's been out there, but he hasn't really made any interceptions. But we're hearing, he's making plays in practice. It's not scheme, so they're shuffling people in and out. So I can understand that the lack of, I guess, big plays out of him. But you're still going to expect something out of him. Ramczyk, we talked about too. Looks like he is the best left tackle option on this team with Armstead being out. Then, of course, we haven't seen much of Trey Hendrickson because of injury. But the 6th-round pick, Muhammad, he looks like I thought that was going to be a guy that, would probably get put on injured reserve because Sean wants to stash him away, or he might get cut and brought back to the practice squad. Well, he's made, 3 sacks in 2 games.
Yeah.
Teams have film on him. He's going to make the team. He's got to, because you can't afford to cut him. So, yeah, you've got something. For a guy who had project player written all over him because of what happened to him in Miami and the lack of college football experience, he is on the fast track of being a starter in the next year or so, I think, because he seems to have all he needs is more tools in the toolbox, but he seems to have the speed and the size you want out of a defensive end. So, yeah. I mean, that's all good stuff.
And it's kind of like not quite on the same scale, but it's sort of like you saw with Dak Prescott in Dallas last year. He backed into the perfect situation because you got Tony Romo getting hurt. You have that into Ezekiel Elliott backfield and offensive line, and played quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys last year and done respectably well. But, I mean, it's almost the same thing with don't laugh that hard. It wasn't that funny.
I'm just thinking if I tried to play quarterback for the Cowboys right now, they'd probably no. I would still need more protection.
Man, I'd need more. That's a scary thing. But anyway, if you look at
I've got the mobility of Jabba the Hutt right now.
If you look at it, the Muhammad situation in New Orleans is kind of along the same line because Muhammad comes in here, has as a 7th-round draft pick, has basically nothing to lose. And after he's drafted, you find out that Nick Fairley's done for the year. So it creates a job opportunity of sorts. And those guys pretty much, and you may concur with me on this, those defensive linemen pretty much on a rotation, a situational rotation. That's what I was trying to think of. Correct?
Yeah, they tried to put him in, let him play some defensive tackle, kind of like that NASCAR package, and he really struggled with that. When players can get their hands on him, he really had a hard time disengaging. So coming off the edge works very well for him because he has that burst, he has that speed, and he can bull rush, and he has a couple of moves with his hands, but he really needs a lot of work to develop that toolkit that they talk about. Where you can learn the spin and the rip and the old Reggie White hump where he gets his arm up underneath the tackles, armpit right here, and he throw him like that, and have the tackle kind of flap in the air, the hump move that he used to call that. Yeah, he needs to work on that kind of repertoire of moves so he can get that good initial hand punch and then kind of spin off that hand punch so the tackle, has a hard time resetting. So there's a lot of potential there. And again, that's why I said we need to give Jeff Ireland credit because
sure,
he has really found, it's not just 1 or 2 guys anymore. Now it's really becoming a lot more hits on your draft. And of course, it helps that you have 4 picks in the first 103 players. That obviously you have a much better chance of getting good players in a draft. But at the same time, as we saw in 2014, which represents the worst, your second-round pick you blew. You start drafting guys with knee problems and everything else. All those players stink, and out of the league. So, it's not just having the picks, but you're making the right moves. You're picking players who will impact your team in a good way. And that's a tremendous difference. And one of the reasons why I don't think we'll be 79 this year. I think we have a good chance of winning 10 games. Even though the rest of the division has gotten better, I think that this team has a much better core now than it had in 2015. The 2015 draft class, even though we had a lot of picks, didn't really give us a good nucleus to build around. We're seeing more and more players that just, they're not your building blocks. It's a lot of the problems that you saw in the 2014 draft class, the 2013 draft class, and the 2011 draft class. Just guys who aren't good core players.
You know what? And I was talking about this with someone the other day. Separates the coach that is considered great over the long haul and one that gets quick and gets out quick, sort of like I maybe in that category you could categorize a fossil. I mean, he made that New York Giants team hit, and then all of a sudden they're disappear. Well, the difference in those is the coach that can retool rather rebuild. And Sean, it's only a fine line that separates the two. Keeping your core of solid players to build upon and to keep you functional while at the same time slowly building up the others. And eventually those others get built up to the point where it's time to retool those that you had as your foundation before. And Sean Payton has been trying to do that. And as you alluded to, I think Jeff Allen is to be beyond commended for the job that he's done. As you said, the past two drafts have been looking at it through Sphinx-colored glasses, the past two drafts have been absolutely phenomenal, especially the one this past year, because you're looking at the possibility of every player taken in the last draft, the 2017 draft, being a functional member of this roster come September.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I said in the offseason it was to be 4. It could be as many as 5 players who are going to have an impact on the future of this team this year. The way this team is going to play this year. So absolutely, it's I don't live in fear anymore of draft day. Like, oh my God, what are they going to draft now?
Alan, we got a kind of as a break between here and the next item on the agenda here. A guy, and please forgive me if I'm not saying this name right, but Bjorn Charlie, I believe I'm saying that properly. That's on our
what was it?
Bjorn Charlie.
Okay.
It's on our live chat, and he wants to know: do you guys think Peyton will be fired if he doesn't win at least 9 games this year?
Nope. I'll tell you flat out, no, he won't. A lot of people think that. A lot of people think that there's some kind of playoffs a bust thing hanging over Sean Payton's head. I don't believe that, no, because I look at the owner, Tom Benson. He's shown tremendous loyalty to employees. You have to do him wrong. And I mean Randy Mueller kind of wrong, which to this day I still don't know what Randy Mueller did. But you have to show him Randy Mueller type of disloyalty for him to fire you. Jim Finks died, okay? Jim Finks died. That's how he left. Jim Moore resigned after the diddly poo comment. Mike Ditka and Bill Kuharich are the only people he actually fired. And then, of course, Jim Haslett, he fired. But I'm talking about fired because he wanted a clean slate. I don't think he is, especially the way Mickey Loomis is with both the Pelicans and the Saints. I don't think he is, at 90 years old, ready to do the clean slate like he did in 2000 and bring in all new people as far as general manager, all new coaching staff, the whole bit. I just don't see that happening. People may get upset about that, but that's just my feeling right now. We would have to go through a 3-13 type of season for Sean to get fired, or Sean would have to resign. That's what would have to happen. But
and the good news of that is I lived through that. See what happens next. As far as me, I've been asked this question so many times that I've basically lost count, and I try to be consistent in the way that I address that. And my response is basically this: maybe not. That is going to be more than likely directly dependent on not Sean Payton so much as Tom Benson and what happens with his situation. As long as, and it's going to sound really crass and cold, and I really didn't mean it that way, but then again, on the other hand, I kind of do. As long as Tom Benson is alive, Sean Payton got a job if he wanted it.
Yeah.
Up to the point of like Alan alluded, 3-13, 4-12 kind of season. Because when those fans start with their pocketbooks and they start playing a half-empty Superdome, it's something that an owner can ignore, because that's affecting the bottom line of the organization, and they're going to have to sit up and take notice of that.
It's why Jim Haslett was fired. Jim Haslett was fired because the Saints needed to have the fans out there supporting the team. Otherwise, the team was going to move. So Jim Haslett had to go. Mike Ditka and Bill Kuharich are the only people he actually fired. And you have to think about that. That is over 30 years of being a team owner. Okay? He's only fired 2 GMs and 1 head coach. Really for incompetence. Haslett got fired, so 2 head coaches, but that's Katrina related. I'm just saying, as far as job performance, to fire them, that it's really only Kuharich and Ditka who had to go.
And to be honest with you, just my 2 cents, and I apologize for interrupting you. In my opinion, what got Mike Ditka fired was mortgaging the farm on Ricky Williams, and it not turned dividends. It's
6-10, 6-10, 3-13. That got him fired. And Ditka's volatility. The organization seemed rudderless. No quarterback. Ditka, after that Atlanta game, talking to the reporters about, how he just doesn't have it anymore, how he doesn't, maybe they need to find somebody else to do the job. That kind of, that volatility had, Benson doesn't like that, and it showed. The team was helter-skelter. But if Katrina doesn't happen, I'm just saying, if Katrina doesn't happen, Sean Payton never arrives. We don't get Drew Brees. We have Jim Haslett for the next few years as he tries to find another quarterback to replace Aaron Brooks and the whole bit. I mean, it's that's the kind of owner you've got. You have to make it that he has to fire you. And the reason why he fires you is because you personally did Tom Benson wrong. And I think that's what got Randy Mueller fired, or that the fans just aren't coming to the games anymore. But guess what? There's a 50,000 name waiting list for people for season tickets for the Saints, and Benson knows that. So, yeah, I just can't see that happening. I just don't. It would have to be a collapse.
There's the overriding narrative on that in the, I guess you want to call it the mainstream media, seems to be it's going in Sean Payton terms anyway, going to be wild card or greater or bust. And I have a hard time believing that because I've sit here for 11 years now, and I've seen the best of times. Obviously, in Miami, I've seen the worst of times. Several steps along the way prior and since Miami.
Well,
you cannot fairly crucify Sean Payton for the shortcomings. Not all of them, in my opinion.
Well, he's the head man, so he does take all the blame. And just like he takes the credit, he's going to take all the blame. But here's the thing. Sean Payton is coaching like this is playoffs a bust, okay? Yep, Sean Payton absolutely is making decisions like he's going to lose his job or have to leave if he can't make this work. Because he's doing something that no coach for the Saints has ever done. He's trying to rebuild a whole new Super Bowl team with around one quarterback, an aging quarterback at that. If you think about who's left from that 2009 team, well, Zach Strief,
and
Thomas Morstead, yes, who's a rookie. That is it. So you've turned his entire roster over. He has replaced 3 coaches that have been there for a long time. He fired 2 doctors because of a misdiagnosis. He let it before he found out it was a misdiagnosis. He was trying to get Bro back on the field. This is what we talked about last week. By playing that whole, well, we're going to trade you if you don't get your ass back out on this field, until they found out that they actually had a hairline fracture.
Which they
right below
our show, and I showed my behind, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was one of those things where he was right. We were right when it was a motivational tactic, but it backfired because Sean was given bad information. Well, he got bad information. I mean, you're being told it's a bone bruise and you're missing these practices because it's a bone bruise, and it turns out it's a fracture, not a bone bruise. Well, it makes Sean look stupid for being out there, so that's why they got fired. It was a bad diagnosis, so you put Bro behind the schedule of coming out in a timely manner, added probably a week to his recovery time. So, yeah, he was pissed off about that. But you see Sean trying to coach the way he coached the 2016, a physical training camp. They're doing a lot out in the heat, which I didn't expect them to do, but they're doing a lot out in the heat. They're trying to be more aggressive on defense. It's very much like that 2006. We're going to establish a culture, a certain culture, and this is what he's going to use to try and carry this team back to the playoffs and make a move in the playoffs. So if it doesn't, let's just say they get a wild card, they're one and done, or they win the wild card game, lose divisional round like they did in 2013. Okay? They're going to try and use that to say, okay, here we go. We're back on the right track. Drew re-signed for a couple more years. We're going to draft a quarterback now. We're going to draft those players that we think we need to fill in holes to try and keep this momentum going. So it's not like how it was in 2013, where 2014 you kind of fell off the earth. It's going to be more like 2009, 10, and 11, where you're going back to the playoffs every year and you're trying to advance again. So that's how I think Sean's trying to run this camp. I think that's Sean's philosophy about coaching, that I'm going to take this team back to the playoffs and show I can do it.
Yeah, defiance is a very key motivator for Sean Payton, I have come to see.
I think it's a Bill Parcells influence. Parcells is pushing him for that.
I was just about to say that. I'll just to piss him off. I guess three risers would be Kamara, and would it be fair to include Teo?
Well, linebackers in general, I think Klein, mine would be Kamara, obviously, Klein and Teo, and we already talked about Muhammad, but I would throw Chris Banjo in there. There's a guy I didn't even have in that early, final 53 roster. I didn't even have him making the team. Now I got him as maybe your special teams captain, because he's a headhunter out there. He is a gunner. He made 2 outstanding tackles and down. That's the other thing we're seeing. What, 5? I'm talking about the 2. I'm talking about the 2 big ones. Where the number one, where you got the guy to run backwards 10 yards, they made the tackle. The other one, we downed it.
He made 5 special teams slow tackles.
Yeah,
that is how you make a.
So yeah, that here's a guy that was brought in, and here's the other thing I've talked a little bit about this in the past, and we kind of beat around it, but the special teams. They cost us 3 games last year. They're going to win us 3 games, at least 3 games this year. We will have
absolutely
at least 1 kickoff return for a touchdown. I'm making that prediction now. We will have at least 1 kickoff return for a touchdown. We better,
because I got Ted Ginn fantasy.
We saw Lutz kick a 52-yard field goal. Yeah, it was a little low, but that ball could have gone for 60. And it was dead on, okay? Like it was nothing. He kicked that.
Did you see that 52-yard knuckleball?
Yeah.
If he'd have put some arch on that indoors, we're talking at least 65 yards.
Yeah. Yep. But
and you can't hurt the line anymore, so you can hit that low.
Well, it was low, but what we've seen in practice, he's getting them high again. That one he got a little low, but he is getting these things high. And he is hitting them. He's going 8 for 8, 9 for 9 in practice, maybe missing 1. But, Justin Drescher's back, and you heard Thomas Moore say he was very happy to see him back. And because they got good snaps, he was booming the punts that were flipping the fields. We were seeing good special teams productions from all the levels. From
special teams is always the thing that you take for granted until last year, the New York Giants game last year. Until you lose a game, and if you lose one game, well, it's not that big deal. We've got 15 more. Well, then you lose that next one and say, well, that stings. We need to maybe take a look at that. Then you lose that next one and that next one, all because of special teams snafu. Then it's like, we've got to do something. And they've addressed that in the offseason by the allocation of key ingredients and players in key positions like Banjo, like your Ted Jr., although we haven't seen that manifest on the field just yet preseason. You also have the man I believe could be equally as important in the return game as Ginn and Kamara. It's not going to be an every down back offense, because you got to keep in mind you still haven't seen Mark You still haven't seen Adrian Peterson. And those guys, make no mistake about it, Alvin Kamara could light the field on fire into the end zone. That's not going to change the fact that right now he is third team back for the New Orleans Saints. Yeah. That's not going to change. The only thing that's going to change is the fact that he will run himself out of a job in New Orleans if he continues at this pace.
Well, I guess, like I was saying from the beginning, we didn't realize how bad the special teams were, like you said, until you started having to block kicks. We finally have a kicker. It looks like we settled down and got a consistent young kicker. Maybe Garrett Hartley needed a coach like what the Saints have now to get him to be that consistent kicker, because he became a box of chocolates, after 2009. And really after that drug suspension, I think he had a year-long suspension for Adderall or something, in 2011, we had to have you brought John Casey back from the dead, and he was your kicker in 2011. But, you needed somebody to work with a young kicker like that to get him to be consistent. And I think with these coaches, we have somebody who's working on Lutz. He showed he had the raw talent. Now he's going to become a consistent NFL kicker, a good NFL kicker, and a weapon. Once again, we'll have a weapon now on special teams. So, it's all the things that are looking. There's a lot to look forward to. So I'm not ready. I'm not ready to shut the door on the Sean Payton career or era. I want to see more, because unlike previous coaches, I'm thinking Jim Moore with Carl Smith. I'm thinking, Jim Haslett with some of the decisions he was making. You're not having a coach who is stubbornly sticking with the same thing, going, well, it worked last time, so I'm going to keep trying to do this until it works again. Sean has shown the ability to say, you know what? This isn't working. I need to get rid of this, and maybe we can get better. I need to get somebody who makes better decisions on draft picks. So we got Jeff Ireland to come in. I need to get somebody to make the special teams better. So we got that. I need somebody to make my defensive linemen better. So I got that. My linebackers have stunk outside of 2009 through 2011 when I had Vilma, and Shanley, and for a brief time, Fajita. So I need somebody who's going to coach these young linebackers to get them better so we can win again. I did that. He is making those kind of moves. So it is becoming a bit of a new coaching staff, even though you have the same head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up comes, you said, Saturday night in the friendly confines of the New Orleans
Mercedes-Benz Superdome.
New Orleans Mercedes-Benz Superdome, home of your New Orleans Saints. You
haven't been to many games in the Dome, have you? You haven't been to too many games in the Dome, have you?
Man, I only live 6 hours from the Dome.
No, well,
I don't live around the corner from
the guy they got going in right now. I don't know if he used to DJ strip clubs or not, but he's got that same kind of voice. It's like, your New Orleans Saints is much like, all right, boys and girls, let's get ready for Cinnamon. Everybody pull out their dollars and give her a thank you. Hey, same kind of voice, it's, she's my cherry pie. You hear that going? That's what I heard happened in strip clubs. Not that I had been
there. John Butler just broke his pencil.
Oh yeah, I know. That's going to be number one on the things I learned on Under the Dome. Alan imitates strip club DJs. Yeah. Because I've always, man.
That reminds me of we have got to get John back in here, man. We've had
absolutely.
him since the draft show. That's the last time we had him on.
Yeah, because I always wondered,
he was the last one that joined the cast that night, and every time someone else's transmission would blink, it would kick him off, and he kept having to get back on and get back on. But we love John Butler, man.
That's because he's up in New York, So I mean, that's just how it works for him.
Well,
so
have you noticed our guys? We got Butler, we got Tyler, we got Bob. All those guys are from up there.
Pinto lives at the edge of the United States, the earth in the United States. He lives in Maine, I mean, the only thing we need to have a Saints fan out in Oregon now, kind of compete with that. Oregon and Washington.
Got one. Zach, kind of a closet under the dome fan, but we're going to get him kind of transition out of that Seattle thing maybe one day, but
now, I got a friend that lives up in Vancouver, Washington, who he's now a Seahawk fan, but he was in Baton Rouge when we went to college together. So,
man, we got guys and gals that follow us all over this country, and to all of them that have reached out to me and contacted me, and I've talked to all of my buddies and friends in Oklahoma that follow our show. The folks in San Diego, the Saint Craft Beer guy, or Saint Craft Radio. Why don't I say beer? Guys,
because they have beer too. They make beer.
And Sea Brewer, in Seattle, all of our guys up in the Northeast, and even our Atlanta Falcons guy. And he's going to be on with us, which brings me is an interesting segue to the last thing that we're going to do tonight. We invite you all to join us on Saturday, September the 9th, 8 to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. Guests for our annual season kickoff show. The first hour will, give or take, is going to be with Herbie Dopey of the New Orleans Times Tribune, beat writer for the New Orleans Saints. I'm really looking forward to getting Herbie on. Fascinating guy. I really think a lot of this guy, even above and beyond the world and scope of football. Just a really, really interesting story that this guy has. And our second hour is going to be, as we did last year, the NFC South Roundtable, where it'll be Alan and myself representing the New Orleans Saints. We have Joe Delano and Tony Dunn, and even Mitchell is going to join us from the C3 podcast representing the Carolina Panthers. We're going to have Josh Schultz representing the Atlanta Falcons, and Buccaneers will be represented by the big guy, Gene Thomas, and also David Harrison. And we want to invite you guys to be a part of it. It's going to be a special 2-hour show. Get everyone lined out, not only on the NFC South, but on the league in general. Alan, did I forget anything?
No, not at all, except for the fact that the Atlanta Falcons have, in the preseason, have let 2 fourth-quarter leads evaporate into losses. Just pointing that out for you, that's all. Not that I want to cause trouble or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to let you know, that has happened. So
somebody sent me this video the other day, Monday. It said, in case you missed it, son, I thought, this is going to be like a time-lapse thing of the eclipse. And the camera goes on, and you're sitting there looking at the sun, and slowly this piece of said Atlanta Falcons a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl. I thought, yeah, this isn't going away anytime soon.
No, it's not. There was a question, I think, one time it was asked, would you accept going 2-14 if both of those losses were both of those wins, the only wins you had that season, were beating the Atlanta Falcons 28-3. And I was kind of like,
Is there a time limit?
Yeah. I would hate going 2-14, but to give Atlanta 2 defeats like that, or one in the Superdome was 28-3, but in the one in the Georgia Dome, you come back from 25 points down to beat the Falcons. Yeah, that would be tough to say. No, I'll take the wins instead. But that would be entertaining.
Somebody on Facebook suggested the other day that we played the Falcons for the first time that Adrian Peterson and the Lutz 8-3. Just a little more salt for that wound.
Oh yeah!
Thank you guys so much for joining us. We invite you guys all to reach out to us via our Facebook page, our email, which you can find on our Facebook page. Reach out, tell us what you guys want to hear, want to know about, want to learn about, want us to talk about. We are interested in what you guys have to say. So,
absolutely,
let us know.
And remember, no matter what happens Saturday night, preseason is an illusion. You're never as good as you look in preseason, nor are you ever as bad. So if we get back on the downward trend where the Texans just kind of blow us out, don't freak out. Don't start with the 0-16. What quarterback we're going to draft next year in the top 5 or whatever. Don't get like that. Just wait until the real games start. And in this case, it's what, September 11th? I don't have a calendar in front of me right now, but I think it's September 11th.
Week 1?
Yes, September 11th. Yes, week 1.
11th.
Wait till September 11th and see how we really look. Okay?
Absolutely.
Remember the Detroit Lions went undefeated in the preseason to go 0-16 in 2008. So preseason doesn't matter. So with that in mind, good night, everybody.